Hello, I'm Christy Welch, Direct Marketing Specialist with the Ohio State University South Centers, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our virtual 2021 Agritourism Ready Conference. We are sorry we can't be all together on a farm this year as we've done in the past, but we do think that we have some great information from a variety of presenters for you. So I hope you enjoy watching the presentations. Be sure to submit any questions that you have about the presentations to the email address you received your registration confirmation from. And then we hope you can join us live on March the 18th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. online. And our presenters will be with us and able to answer your questions live at that time. And I wanted to thank the Wright and Moore Law Company, as well as Ohio Farm Bureau Federation of Ross, Pickaway, Hocking, and Fairfield counties for collaborating with us again this year to bring you some great information about Agritourism Ready here in Ohio. And again, we look forward to seeing you March 18th at 6:30 p.m.
Well, welcome to the 2021 Agritour. Thank you so much for letting me come and speak with you guys, although virtually. My name is Tim Cohen. I am the Chief Culture Officer at Richwood Bank. I'm also the president of Richwood University, which you see that nice little logo there. It took me a weekend to put that together, so I always try to throw it at the front of every presentation that I do. I also want to throw in here a gratuitous picture of me with an OSU hat on. This was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, my fingers were very cold, but any chance I can support OSU and trout fishing, I try to do that. You can see there my name, and you can reach me by email. That's my cell phone as well. And if you want to jot those down, please feel free. I do have a rich history with OSU. I got 2 degrees from OSU. I then spent time with the Blackwell Group. I was in a professors consortium for 5 years. Then entered the world of banking, ended up opening my own company where I did leadership and organizational development for about 13 years. And then I ended up here at Richwood, been here for the last 5 years, and the best job, even though I worked for myself, that I've ever had. So I did grow up on a dairy farm in southern Franklin County, so I have a heart for what you guys do. I have a lot that I want to share about what we do. I think if anybody has seen me speak before, they tend to walk away feeling like they've drank from the fire hose. I hope to give you a couple actionable items, but we'll probably touch upon a lot of things that you may have questions about. So please feel free to reach out to me afterwards, and I'll add some clarity and structure around those items as well. So why do people really care about culture? I think it's based upon this study here, or at least that supports it. This is about a 5-year-old study, but it tends to be replicated and supported, which is most everybody believes that culture impacts their business, and most everybody believes that their culture is not where it needs to be. And the so what of that is if culture has the greatest impact on business results, which this was 40,000 leaders across America that agreed that that was true. But you look at where people spend their time, they spend their time on strategy and not on culture. And we all know the famous saying that culture eats strategy for lunch. So it's an important thing to attend to. Let's make sure we define what that is before we get too deep into it. My job at the end of the day is really to manage the engagement of our workforce, and we all ought to be able to reduce our jobs into a sentence, and mine is I know what to do when. So I know what to do when somebody brings in a Canadian check, and I know what to do when the president walks into the room. So that encompasses all the technical and cultural elements. So that's our definition of culture. I do think if you're unhappy or you want to see a change in what's happening within your business, that you're going to have to deal with culture. It is naive to think that not addressing culture can result in then getting suddenly different outcomes from a work group because you've set a new goal or something like that. You have to address how people view the work that they're doing. The first thing to get that done, the first step you need to take to get that done is you have to know where you are. You have to be able to measure it. We use several tools. This is one of the more popular. I'm not going to camp out on this for a long time. I just want people to understand that you can objectify it, you can define it, you can measure it in terms of behaviors, so it's not as fuzzy of a concept as people would believe it to be. So I won't spend time on this model, but certainly if you have questions about how do I understand what my culture is, reach out and let me know, and we'll help you get that done. If you could do two things, this will reduce my talk, by the way, to about 3 minutes, because if you could only do two things to impact the culture of your business and make a very positive change, the first thing I would tell you to do is make sure that you understand how it is that you hire people. You have no greater, more powerful lever to pull than who it is that you bring into your company. So that requires you obviously to know who it is that you're bringing in, and then making sure that you have a discipline surrounding making sure you find the right people. Lots of people will tell me, we just can't find the right people, or we just have to get a body or whatever, but they can also point to other companies that get lucky in quotation marks because they seem to have great people. It's probably because they have a discipline around how it is that they locate, attract, and retain their talent. So this is a huge part of how it is that I have had the success that we've had here at Richwood, and I would encourage you to take it really, really seriously. The other one is we tend to rely on our superstars, and sometimes our superstars can mess up our culture. And I would tell you that you should choose a decent team over a superstar every time. I don't know if anybody knows William Muir out of Purdue, but he did a study on egg-laying chickens. He grouped his average producers together, and then he grouped together his super chickens, and he expected obviously for his super chickens to go super productive. What he found out was that his average group, when they were together, upped the production of all of the chickens, and his superstar group, they all pecked each other to death. So this has been taken into the world of management and applied in some really powerful ways, in that if you have a team that works well together, you're going to gain what we call social capital that you can spend within the organization to shape your culture and make powerful changes. If your superstars have any diva qualities about them in terms of detracting from your business, that's a hard thing to overcome. So the question that I was asked most directly to talk about was really about how is it that we assure and work on service standards. So how is it that we can, what is it that we do to help guide the customer experience, and what are the parameters that we use to help our employees get there? We base our model on something that we learned at the Disney Institute. And they have 4 keys. We also have 4 keys. Their keys are safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. Very famous story in Disney lore about somebody in the park that fell down, busted out their teeth, and the character came over and panned panic and basically tried to entertain the people around while the person's mouth was bleeding. That helped Disney realize maybe priorities weren't as clean as they needed to be, so they have reset those so that safety is the first and most important aspect to being within the park, followed by courtesy, efficiency, and show. So really what we're here to talk about is service standards and how it is at Richwood that we sort of help define the customer experience through assuring our service standards, and what is it that we teach our staff to do. This grew out of some lessons that we learned at the Disney Institute. We have 4 keys. Disney has 4 keys. We base that concept on what they've brought forward. Disney's keys are safety, courtesy, efficiency, and show. And I'll share with you ours in just a minute. The way you get there is you think through what is the ideal service experience for your customer. I'm sure you guys have lots of ideas for what those are. We went through a very regulated exercise and can talk to you a little bit more about that. And we came out with these keys, our keys to decision making, which is trust, friendliness, style, and efficiency. They sit in this order for a reason. Trust is more important than being friendly. Friendly is more important than style, and style is more important than efficiency. I will say to you as emphatically as I can, they are all critically important. But what they allow us to do is they allow a hierarchy in terms of making decisions. So I'll break down these keys for you in just a moment, and hopefully that'll be a little more clear. The reason that we have them, we have two reasons that we have them. One is for the customer. So there's lots of ways that you can deliver and be conscientious in terms of service standards for your customer. But if you have the ability to up the percentage of the times that you're going to give them the best experience, why wouldn't you do that? And that's what the keys allow us to do. And really a big part and a big focus of this for us is we are a growing company. And in that growth, one of the things that we have to accommodate is to continually drive decision-making down in the organization as close to the customer as we can get. I would imagine that's probably not uncommon in most industries, yours in particular, I would think as well. And what we really want to do is help empower our employees to be able to make those decisions and make those decisions confidently. What the keys do is it gives them a backdrop to think through what are the next steps that I should take? How is it that I should approach this problem? What is it that I need to assure is in place first before I do the next thing? So it provides a logic system for our employees to give the best service they can get, and it allows their managers not to be on their back to check them, and gives them some freedom, and so it increases their experience as well. So again, there's our keys. We encourage our employees to be bold. We want them to use it. We want to defer to action. I want us to have an organization where we're basically giving people reins, I want an organization where we are pulling back on the reins. We as we have grown, a lot of what we do is we find employees are cautious because we're getting more rules and those kinds of things, and we're trying to create a more action-oriented organization. So what the keys allow you to do is you can be bold, right? You can go out and act, and then you can unpack it later and say whether or not you used it right or you made the right decision. So we always want people to defer to action. We want them to use it as a way to talk about the decisions that they made. And because all four keys are powerful, very rarely would you ever be wrong. They're all good things to do. We just want to make sure that we give everybody, customer and employee, the opportunity to make the best choice. So let's break these down. Trust and friendly. You've probably seen this phrase before, to be a friendly, trusted advisor. That is not our keys in our order. If you were to walk our hallways, this is what you would hear people say: to be a trusted, friendly advisor. It's a small change, and it might feel like a little speed bump when you hear that, to hear somebody say trusted, friendly rather than friendly, trusted. But it is a norm here. And part of that reason that it's a norm is we want people to recognize the importance of trust. And we go beyond that to help them understand what trust means for us. We give them phrases they can use to describe who they are. Here's some of them. I'm reliable. I assure I'm accurate. I don't misrepresent myself. I focus on doing right. I do what I say I'm going to do. These are all things that help build trust. You might be struck by a couple of these here. I do not misrepresent my skills or knowledge, and my focus is on doing right by the customer. Neither of these are really about product knowledge or process knowledge, but they are trust building things. Imagine if you hire seasonal help, or if you have new people on the job and they don't know how to get something done. We know for our people that are on the line, it's a much more powerful trust building activity to say to a customer, you know what, I'm still learning, or I've only been here for a few weeks. Let me go grab somebody, and I'm going to get reintroduced to this concept, and I'm going to get you taken care of. That's a decision that might not feel like a trust building decision to make, but it is, because they realize the focus on building trust is to do right by the customer. When the customer realizes that you're going to do that, take care of them first, then they're more likely to trust you. If you're willing to own up to the fact that you don't know everything, they're going to be more likely to trust you. Obviously, we run concurrent efforts so that people can get educated and they can have the right answers. But oftentimes when they don't, they lose sight of the fact that if I'm going to build trust, I need to go find somebody that's going to help me get that done in a way that does that trust building activity. So we build several activities, both when we bring people on board as well as ongoing. And if people are interested in all the communication and training vehicles that we use, I can jump into that. I don't know if that's appropriate here or not. But we break down each of those descriptors in ways that our employees can actually bring them to bear. So let's talk about trust. Let's unpack trust. That's our most important piece. We break it down into 4 elements: integrity, intent. These are issues of character, and then capabilities and results. And that's really, what do you do with those sort of God-given tools? And we view these as competencies, which are the application of your integrity and your intent. So we break down these pieces for our employees. We have surveys for them and activities that they can then do discussions around to figure out where it is that they can either lead the organization or otherwise figure out where it is that they need to grow, and maybe find a mentor to help them grow in an area that they might be weak in. So looking at integrity, this is where most of the major violations of trust happen. So it's a really, really big deal. A lot of times we just think of that as honesty. It's actually much deeper than just being honest, although obviously that's an important part. But congruency is when you're really acting in accordance to your values. There's no really gap between what you intend to do and what you actually do. Humility is a hallmark here. It's why I came to the company. Again, another story. I don't want to eat too much into our time, but a humble person is more concerned about what's right than being right. And I think that a lot of times I've seen people grapple with this concept of humility, that it must mean I need to lessen myself, or I'm not important. And that's not at all what it says. It just says within your existence, there's things that are more important than you as an individual. Doesn't mean you're not important or critical to getting it done. It just, I think for most of us, if we think about our families, we would humble ourselves before our families, because we would do whatever we needed to do to serve our families. So humility is a big, big part of integrity here. And then last is courage. And courage doesn't happen. Courage cannot happen unless there's fear, right? That's a precursor to it. So doing something even though you are fearful, that allows you to be a person of integrity, doing what's right, even though you might be fearful or not know what the outcomes are. So that's how we break it down and describe it. How we then apply it is we ask people to use these concepts in the work to become accountable. And we spend a lot of time on accountability here within Richwood. And I would ask you just for a quick second to think about, in terms of accountability, what's the difference between having an expectation and establishing an expectation? I would ask you to think about, maybe when you go to a restaurant, do you have an expectation about what your waiter or waitress is supposed to do for you? Most of us would say, yes, we have an expectation about what that is, and we pay them, right? We tip them according to how well they meet that expectation. But the next question is who does the work up front to establish those expectations with those people so that you get what it is that you want and they get rewarded accordingly? Imagine a restaurant experience where instead of just walking in and having a series of things that you expect your waiter or waitress to do, that you actually sat down and said, let's talk about what's going to make a great dining experience for me. I don't ever want my water to be less than half full, and I'd like you to check on us at least every 15 minutes. And if you do that, I'll give you a 25% tip. Or 20% of, or whatever it is, whatever your number is. And if you set that, my guess is you'll probably see that it gets met. The problem is that we don't do that very often. We certainly don't do it in work as often as we should. We have a methodology around how it is that we train both the people that are expected to be accountable as well as the managers who hold them accountable. But oftentimes we don't do this in our work situation, and then we're left looking at an outcome that we didn't want, and we say, how'd that happen? Well, the real answer, but it's a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, is how did I let that happen? Because you didn't establish the expectations in the way that you wanted. Our model allows you to walk around that. It's a very simple model. It's a 4-step piece. See it, own it, solve it, do it. It sits above a line And that means something sits below the line, and what sits below the line is something we call the blame game. The blame game, by the way, if you're wondering who plays the blame game, everybody who's watching this plays it. I play it. My president of this company plays it. Everybody on our line plays it. It's something we all do. The question is, the more accountable people catch themselves doing it and stop. There's lots of blame game things. People play wait and see. People will say, it's not my job. They just ignore you, right? You do just enough to cover your behind. Finger pointing, that's the real sexy one, right? We get to talk about other people who screw up and why they're no good. That one's very seductive. Some people will just continually say, I need more training. I gotta have more training. I don't have enough training, right? So there's lots of things that people can put out there that are to keep them from being accountable. So we want to end that, even if those claims are accurate. So within this model, there are best practices. We're constantly circling back through these each year. I've grabbed one from each just to talk about it very quickly. The see it portion is mostly focused on making sure that you have the right kind of feedback. So here's a small thing to use within your company. Don't let anybody ask you. You want to start asking people for feedback, but don't ask people, do you have any feedback for me? Because the answer will be no, or it'll be yes, you did great. Because people are generally nice and they don't really want to offend. The better question to ask is what feedback do you have for me? Because what this assumes, obviously, is that there is feedback and you're just waiting to hear what it is. You may even have to, at some point, prime the pump with places where it is that you know you need to improve, because in offering that grace, people may be more likely to say, oh, yeah, I did notice you were struggling a little bit there, and then maybe they edge into giving you some other helpful feedback as well. But regardless, when you finally do get that feedback for the first time, how you respond to it so that you can keep it going and building it within your culture is really, really important. The first thing for all nice people to do is say thank you, but it's got to be sincere. It's got to be real. Somebody that finally gives you feedback, positive or negative, is taking a risk, taking a chance. And it's not something we typically do. So really take a moment and let people know that you appreciate it. Think about it. But here's the kicker. Don't vote on it. Don't decide whether or not it's right or wrong. Just ask yourself, do I want them to have that opinion? And based upon your answer to yourself, you're probably going to give yourself some really good direction. We're all subject matter experts in something, right? Whatever you're employed for is pretty much what you're a subject matter in. And when you ask people for feedback about the thing that you know to your core and somebody criticizes it, your first thought is to vote on it. They don't know. They haven't done it. I've done this my whole life. Oh, I know that particular issue. It's not going to work. We have all those things that go through our head because it's threatening our expertise, right? Try to set that aside. Let's talk about the own it piece. A quick example for the own it piece. Own it. If you want to talk about owning a problem, this is really about engagement. And what I would encourage you to think about is that engagement isn't a all or nothing idea. It exists upon a continuum. And if you're having trouble either feeling engaged yourself in your work or engaging others in your work, think about it in two different camps. Think about it as an intellectual exercise to buy into the work, and think about it as an emotional exercise for appreciating the need of the work, because you're probably going to find one of those two factors unbalanced if you are not completely and fully bought in. For example, if you, using my daughter as an example, college-bound daughter, like many, she has come back home for a short period of time. Her room is busy. I think her mother would say it's a pigsty. And we can say, hey, honey, we need you to clean up your room. And she could disagree. She could intellectually say, it's not dirty. I like it this way. And she could emotionally not value that idea of keeping it clean. She could disagree. She'd be uninvolved. And so she's going to resist, or she's going to resent those requests to clean her room. She may agree that it's filthy, but she might say, hey, why don't you close the door? Like, why are you worried about it? It's dirty, but it's my room. So I'm not dragging it out into the rest of the house. So yeah, you're right. It's dirty, but it's my room. So just let it be. And so in this way, she feels like she's kind of exempt from it. She doesn't have to be that engaged in it. She could disagree that it's dirty. She could be like, it's totally fine for me, but she could emotionally say, I want to be a good girl. I want to be part of the family. This, by the way, is actually where this is the kind of the space she lives in. I want to be a good girl. I want to contribute to the family. And so she works on it. The question is, do you think she does great? She does pretty good. But a lot of us work in this space, right? A lot of us work in this space where your manager may say to you, or the powers that be may say to you, this is what you need to do. And you just, you trot off and do it because you want to either be a good employee or a responsible owner or whatever it is that's driving you to do it, but you might not be engaged in it and appreciating the need to have it done. So anyways, yeah, so for Izzy and where she currently is she'll comply. And then lastly, yeah, she agrees we haven't got her here yet, by the way, but if she did, she could say, I agree, it's filthy and I want to make it better. And so she's bought in, she's invested, she's making her bed every day, that kind of thing. That's where we want people to work. That's not where people always work. But if you think across these two different things, you may find that you can change some ownership in regards to that. So how is it that you go and engage people in these two exercises, intellectually and emotionally? This graph, by the way, is actually the picture of a mountain range through a tennis racket. It's not really a graph of anything, because what we tend to do, particularly we're bankers, right? So we love numbers. We want to put numbers up. We want everybody to be motivated by numbers. But the fact is our workforce, and lots of obviously super capable, bright people in terms of math and the specifics of what it takes to run a bank. But I can tell you, given my accountabilities, story beats numbers every time. So figure out what your story is. And like I said, I've got tons of measures that I'm measured against, and my bonuses are figured out and all that. We have a dashboard of 30 things that drive our strategic measures, and we have another 30 roughly that we use for performance reviews. So we have 60, 70 measures that we're constantly working on, constantly rolling up under to these, our core strategies that we believe we spend a lot of energy for our employees to understand. But what moves them along that, think about hearing a story about a bombing in a building and so many people were killed. That's a statistic, right? It might move us a little bit, but think about those stories where they tell you about the one person that lost their life and what their family looked like and what the challenges are going to be. That will grab you. That is the story behind the statistic. That is what engages you emotionally in what it is that you're trying to get done. So know your story of your business and tell it. Okay, so that's trust. That's trust, like in a really, really tight, small, fast package. Let's move on to being friendly. Here are some of the descriptors. Sorry, I jumped ahead. Here's some of the descriptors that we use in the world of being friendly: projecting positive energy, smiling, being respectful regardless of the circumstances, initiating conversation, things like that. Nobody should walk into a Ridgewood bank and ever have to be the first person to say hello. That should never, ever happen. So trust has to happen for us first. That sits at the top. Remember, our keys are trust, friendly, style, and efficiency. Nobody's going to come into a bank where everybody's really friendly and there's lots of really fun things happening within the organization if they don't trust you with their money, right? That has to be number one for us. Yours might be different within what it is that you're trying to get done. But afterwards, the reason that people walk into a bank is often for a relationship. If it's not for a trusted financial advisor, it could be for a relationship. So, and so the descriptors that we have around this: be approachable, be courteous, be respectful, make the customer experience memorable. The one little gift I'll give you here that we teach all of our folks is that everyone is due being built up. Right. So this little slide here that says, make me feel important. If you know Mary Kay Ash, who started Mary Kay Cosmetics, she said, assume every single person you meet in your life has this sign around their neck, and then go and do it. So when I was a kid, If you went to Grandma and Grandpa's, you didn't have to work on the farm at the weekend. So I went to my Grandma and Grandpa's a lot. Love my Grandma and Grandpa, by the way. It wasn't like a sacrifice to do it, but you went to church with Grandma on Sundays, and I didn't like going to church. I want you to put yourself back in that time frame of my life where I'm wearing parachute pants and I got the mullet and the earring, and I was a free spirit. And she's in Washington Courthouse, small town America, conservative Baptist church, and her lady friends weren't real crazy about me either. So she stops on the way to church. She exhales. She turns to me and she says, "Honey, after church is over, we're going to coffee hour, and we're not leaving until you compliment one of my friends." And in that compliment, it has to be sincere. And when you make this sincere compliment, she said, "And I know you're troubled by all my friends," all this kind of stuff. Make it a game, because you're going to meet people your whole life that maybe you don't match up with. Make it a game. And so I took her up on it. Mrs. Sanderson, who was the leader of the blue-haired ladies, I'm staring at her, and I know she didn't like me. And I finally decided that her blue hair, that was kind of like a German helmet, was amazing. So I said, "Mrs. Sanderson, your hair is amazing." And for whatever reason, for whatever gift was due, or whatever it was, she melted in that moment. And in that moment that she melted, our entire relationship changed. And it just has empowered me and fueled me for the rest of my life to see the power of that. It doesn't always happen that way, but it does a lot of times. Somebody who is unapproachable or is having a bad day or whatever, just finding that one sincere compliment, we as people can smell insincerity, right? So make it a game, and make sure that you have fun with it. So I've noticed the time, Rob, so I'm apologizing here. But style, we look at style in two separate ways, one of which is the style of our organization, and then the style of the individual. So who we are, if you don't know us as a bank, shameless plug, check us out, because we're not like other banks. Because I run Richwood University, which is a business consulting firm. We have Richwood Marketing that does marketing for all sorts of small businesses. We have Richwood Payroll, so we can get people paid. We have Richwood Financial to make sure you're financially successful. And oh, by the way, we happen to be a bank, so we do that too. And by the way, in the last 5 years, we've doubled our size. So that's not happening if you don't know about community banking. That's not happening in the world of community banking. So we believe this connection, this style that we believe in, this service to the community, and the way that we enact it is not only important, but it's a good business strategy as well for us. It comes out to understanding your why. This is an exercise I can walk you through as well if you're curious, but figuring out why you exist. For us, it's why does the world need another bank? But you also can do it as an individual as well. If you want to think about the difference of it, I love this saying, which is people don't buy a 1/4-inch drill. They're trying to buy a 1/4-inch hole. I love going to Home Depot, and I love talking to the contractors, because they get this. They don't just say, "Here's our drill bits." They say, "What's your project? Are you drilling into concrete? Are you drilling into wood?" They want to know about it, because they understand, probably maybe not explicitly, but certainly they understand that what you're there to do is get a project done and not buy a drill bit. So, and then lastly, efficiency. And again, it's not that it's not important. It's critically important. It's just moving fast for somebody that hasn't learned to trust you in the banking world doesn't help them. Helping them finish up forms quick, but not building any relationship doesn't do our business or that person really any good. So make sure that you get the most out of your time. Be prepared, which means we want people who build relationships, understand their co-workers, and can call upon the right people and keep themselves educated as well. So if there is another time for a shameless plug, if we can help you with culture or leadership or any of those kinds of things, let me know, because I'd love to do it. It's what I've built my career on. It's what I have a passion for. So.
Yeah, appreciate your time, Tim, and appreciate the presentation. My one question to you is, okay, as a business owner myself, what is the best way to get my employees to buy into culture, whatever it may be? How do I bring them over onto my side?
Well, I would think you would need to, one, define what culture is.
Sure. We
Right.
defined it. And
So yeah, so if we say it's I know what to do when, then it's really creating those scenarios where your employees are feeling pain. So what happens when things get too busy? What happens when your workforce is down? What are the answers the culture then takes care of? You can't change the way business gets done. You can't create new goals if those goals rest upon teamwork and you don't have a teamwork culture. So you find those pain points, you present what the solution is, and in that way you then integrate whatever those cultural elements are into the equation or into the work practices. So you have to leverage training, you have to leverage communication, but really for your average worker, you have to understand the pain point and how it's going to serve them.